Our second pillar of yesterday's tomorrow. Y'all give it up for art. All right. I told y'all when you came in earlier, we're keeping the energy at it high, okay? I know we got up early. Nobody gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. How did y'all do it? Y'all did it, and y'all made it here on time. Praise. Traveling mercies. All right. I haven't gotten up this early in a long time, but I also forgot to set my alarm back because I was easing into the new year. But that said, we're here for yesterday's tomorrow. And so we've heard from some of our speakers about what it means what yesterday's tomorrow means to them. So let's jump into this next clip. Uh-oh. That's what it means to you. We want to talk.
Hi, my name is ALEXnewaudio, and I'm the founder of Gallery 88, an art, fashion, and lifestyle media brand. I am very excited to be part of yesterday's Tomorrow conference this year. I'm excited to be talking about art, culture, and why that's important to the growth of Atlanta. This is a brilliant opportunity to bring leaders together, leaders who are in the middle of their journey and leaders who are further along, to continue to think about how we can work together to impact the community.
That said, y'all make some noise for ALEXnewaudio.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you too.
Slade. Okay, you look very beautiful. Happy New Year. Can I still say that? Are y'all over it yet? It's okay. If you would have said yes, it was still going to happen. Happy New Year. How has the start of the year been for you?
It has been amazing. I've had a really good, what day is this? 16 days? 16 days. It's been a good 16 days.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Have you found yourself easing in, or have you set very, very lofty goals for the year? Or how big are we dreaming?
We're dreaming big this year. I was actually able to take some time at the end of last year to get ready for kind of moving into this year. So now it's just about execution. So far so good. But I'm pacing myself. I don't believe in working too hard. You have to enjoy what you're doing along the way. Otherwise, what's the point if you don't get to enjoy it? So yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about capacity and moving. And Justin said earlier, his word last year was pace. And so you just also say you came back from spending some time with self. I too just did that as well. And y'all probably might hear me talk about this a lot, but I just got back from South Africa. And it was my first time in the motherland. And so where I see myself now is not where I saw myself when I left, for many reasons, but it's just also altered everything I knew about myself as well. And so I just kind of want to get into, to start off, when I ask you, how are you? I want to come from a place as a creative, because I know we leaned a lot on you over the last few years. So how are you?
And I don't say this to be trite. I am incredibly blessed. I was telling a girlfriend of mine recently that I work really hard on my faith and building it and walking in it, because the things that I do, as a creative, I'm making it up as I go along. I'm trying to do things that don't exist. I'm trying to create things that only exist in my head. And even if I were to explain it, it's not going to sound the way it looks in my mind. And so I have to believe that God wouldn't put anything on my heart that he, it, she, whatever you believe, doesn't intend to create and intend to manifest, right? And so that takes a lot of faith to walk in, especially when you come against obstacles, which are inevitable. Nothing is going to go as you expect. For those of us who are in production of any kind, creating anything, it never goes as you expect. And so what I've learned really over the last couple of years is to get comfortable with that, kind of create practices for myself where I can pray through those moments when things aren't going the way that I want them to go. Because what has consistently happened for me is that when things don't go the way I want them to go, they go the way they should go, always. But in the moment, it's hard to remember that. So, yeah.
And I'm sure that transfers over into the work that you do as well, because you have these ideas where, especially as a creative in the art space, any artists in here? It could be music artists, it could be paintings. All right, we're here, we're here. Where you think one piece looks a certain way, you think it'll fit, but then you take a step back and you look at it from another perspective. So you mentioned Gallery 88 in your video. So tell the people a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. So Gallery 88 is an online media company that I started, I don't know, I guess it's been 4 years now. Things happen so quickly. But it's an online magazine. We write articles about art, fashion, design, and culture. It's also spun into having events where we bring those different fields together around food. So we'll have dinners, we'll do tours of exhibitions and artist studios. But the real impetus of creating Gallery 88 was a couple of years ago. You guys remember the Gucci blackface incident, right? So the sweater that had the black lips and or the red lips, and there were lots of brands that were doing these kind of insensitive projects and saying, "Oops, we didn't know," and I know they knew. And the response was for us to say, no, we want to boycott, try to make them do the right thing. And I just really felt like I don't want to ask anyone for respect. I don't want to ask anyone to see me or to recognize what's special about me and what's special about my culture, especially these companies that are building upon our culture. They know where their sales are coming from. They know who's driving their influence, right? And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to highlight Black creatives in art, fashion, and design who were operating at the same level as a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton or whatever other brand that you can name, and highlight that to give us an alternative. So we don't have to keep going and asking them to be polite. We can just shift our dollars and move them elsewhere, because that's the real power that we have. And so when I started it, at first I thought it was going to be an e-commerce platform. And so I was like, oh, and this was before like Black Parade. So before everybody was like, we ought to do this. I was like, oh, I'll make an e-commerce platform and people can buy all these things and find these brands. And then the more I started talking to people about Gallery 88, and the reason it's called Gallery 88 is it's not a place, it is an online platform, is because I wanted to have a place to show and to represent our work. And 88 represents infinity on infinity. And the idea was the depth and the breadth of our creativity as a people is infinite. It's limitless. It's from the beginning to the end and back again. And when I first started talking to people about it, they were like, well, Black luxury and Black high-end, what is that? What are you talking about? What does that even mean? And I realized that people didn't even have a point of reference for putting our culture together with luxury. And it shifted a lot in just like the last couple of years. But at that time, people didn't know what I was talking about. And so I realized that I needed to, before I could get to selling the product, I needed to create a platform to tell the stories. So the difference between a Tom Ford t-shirt and a Hanes is what you believe about the Tom Ford t-shirt, right? And so we need more platforms where we can tell the stories about who we are and the things that we create. And there wasn't a luxury media platform for us, right? So there's also not a ton of Black media anyway, but there wasn't one that was really honing in on luxury. And so, sometimes I would describe it as Rob Report meets Essence kind of idea with Gallery 88 when I started it. And then, so I started then I decided to move into it being more of a website. And then the events kind of came out of it because people want to get together, people want to see each other and meet each other. And it's just been growing since then. And now I'm looking at the writing. I felt really committed to writing and having articles, but now we're moving into content and really video content and being able to tell those stories in more of a visual way. So that's the plan for, what year is this, 2023? It's
Who knows?
No, wherever we are, we're in the future. But to be able to tell those stories through video.
Yeah. And so to take it back just a little bit, I know support for me is a really big thing. And art, entertainment, music, all of those can be very tricky industries to tell parents or friends or family members that I'm going this lean full throttle. And so has art always been the lane? Where did we start and how do we get here?
Yeah, it's a long story. I won't tell you guys the whole story. I will say this. I read something a long time ago that said that kids know who they are at about 12 years old. About 12 years old, you know who the thing that ignites you, right? But we get a lot of messages about why that's not practical, or, you know, we're not encouraged to invest in whatever that little fire is, right? So I say that to say I've always been involved in arts in some kind of way. When I was young, I was acting at one point. I did theater. I did spoken word. I tried dance. I was bad, and my friends laughed at me. If I stuck with it though, I probably could have did that too. And then found my way into fashion and modeling, and was completely obsessed. And you know, my parents were like, "What is that? You're going to college. We don't know what that is." And maybe when you graduate college, they always say, go to college, get the degree. When you graduate, you can do that. Well, you can't really be a model at 21 years old. It's kind of done. But fashion kind of stuck for me. But I had this business degree and I needed a job. And so I did that. I did finance and accounting for probably about 8 years before I realized that I was going to die. Like I was dying slowly in that field. And I could feel it. And it's amazing when you get that realization and you realize how many people are actually dying slowly. They've just committed to something because they haven't figured out what the other thing is. So I was really lucky in that I got fired from a job and I had to figure out.
I told y'all.
Yeah.
Told you.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, you know, I asked myself this question a lot. What would I do if money were no object? And circle back to fashion and doing public relations, actually communications and writing stories. I've always been a good writer, so it kind of started with that. And I thought I would do fashion PR. And there wasn't enough of a market in Atlanta. And then an art gallery hired me really to do like sales and marketing and, you know, some PR work. And so when I got into the art gallery, that's when it was like somebody turned the lights on. It was the perfect mix of my aesthetic interests in art and visual language, and the intellectual piece of like interpreting and decoding and thinking and rethinking, you know, what art is about or what an artist is trying to say. And I did not look back. Was not getting paid. But it was worth it, right? And I just made a commitment that I wanted my life more than I wanted money. And so, you know, now I get paid to live my life, you know. So I mean, it when I say a blessing, I'm really not. I don't know a big enough word to describe what it feels like to do what you love every day. It is, especially when you have had the experience of not doing what you love, or you've watched your family not do what they love, and they try to teach you that because they want you to be safe. But it's remarkable.
Yeah, and I give it up. And I'm getting chills right now thinking about where I want to take the conversation a little bit, because even walking through the hallways, what I think Cam does a really great job of is like, you'll look at a photo and you see your favorite artist or your favorite spot, whether it's wherever in the world, you sit back and you're able to ask yourself, dang, I wonder what the conversation was like to get that person to either look like this or to pose like this, or what was the setting like on the scene. And so living in a world where we're not safe, for lack of better words, to go home to parents who constantly want you to be safe in terms of money-wise, I'm almost in a place now, and I feel like I'm just getting there, where I'm more willing to not play safe, because I mean, everything else is not. So I might as well just go on lead, right? So I appreciate you for going there, because there are these little nuggets of confirmation, at least for me, to try that thing that I said, that might be a little scary, but the only thing being scared is going to do is keep me till tomorrow. And then I put it off again. And so let's just dive in a little bit more into the art space. I am the person who looks at art in galleries as the person, you know, who goes to a winery and they're like, do you taste these notes? No, I don't know what you're tasting. They'll be like, "Oh, you don't see the blues and they're representing this." And no, I don't see that. So can you talk a little bit about the person who may be stepping into the art scene and they're trying to understand the nuances and the innuendos of just being in the room and being present, not to just keep up, but because we're trying to expose ourselves to new things.
Yeah, so thank you for all that, for giving me time to get myself together. Okay. So this is what I tell people about art, right? Is that art is like fashion. The difference is we're exposed to fashion every day of our lives. From the time that we're about 6 years old, we start making decisions about fashion, right? And so by the time you're 20, you know your taste, you know what you like, you know what you don't like. You've made a couple of decisions, you've made some mistakes. I made some mistakes and things. I'm like, why did I buy that? Or why did I wear that? But you've had enough exposure to it to feel confident about your choices, right? And to grow with your choices, and they change over time. Art is the exact same way. The difference is we don't get as much exposure over time. And so art is a process of finding your own taste, your own point of view from the collector's standpoint or from the observer standpoint. It's a process of figuring out what you like and what you don't like, and discovering your own taste, what stimulates you, what makes you excited, what confuses you, and what you're just like, I don't get it. And then over time, kind of growing in your taste and in your appreciation and in your discovery. I tell people, so I also am the manager of marketing at the High Museum of Art. Any High Museum members in here? Yay. Okay. Who goes to High Frequency Friday, though? All of y'all.
See, we was getting to that. We was getting to that. I knew that. I knew that's why they were here. I knew something.
But I tell people, when you go to the museum, just because it's on the wall doesn't mean, and you don't like it, doesn't mean you don't understand. There are things that I go in there and I see, and I'm like, I don't get this. There's so much art in the world that there's really no right or wrong. There's really no way to say this is good or this isn't good, although there are standards that certain people put on art in order to create a market. But theoretically, art is a personal expression, and appreciating art is a personal experience. Does that make sense? Okay.
So you said something earlier about seeing something on the wall. I might think, why is that even in here? How do you go about getting your work in a gallery?
Wow. Okay. So the process is really to get to know the gallerist. So every gallery in the world has an owner, and that owner has what's called a program. And their program is about what they like to put on the walls. So the gallery that I used to work for, the first gallery that I worked for, the owner was really into abstract art. So we didn't have any figurative art. And figurative is, where you can actually see a figure, whether it's a person or a thing or an animal, but you can actually understand exactly what you're looking at. He wasn't into that. He really loved abstract art. He really loved international artists. And he liked art that made him, think and feel a certain way. He was really into sensuality, a lot of like marks and minimalism. That was his program, right? He didn't articulate it quite that way. He used a lot of other words, but he had a specific program. Every gallery has a different type of art that they're trying to show. There's some galleries that focus specifically on female artists. There are some galleries that focus specifically on different cultures, Native artists or Black art. So the key first is to get to know the program of the galleries that are around you or the galleries that you're interested in. Because there may be a gallery that has a huge name and you're like, I want my work there. But if their program doesn't match your work, they're not going to be able to sell your work, because the clients that they're bringing in are people who are interested in what they already do. And also their passion isn't going to be around your work. So as much as you're looking for a gallerist to be interested in you, you need to do your research and make sure that you are interested in that gallery. You're the gallery, and the gallerist, the person who owns the gallery, is like your marketer. They're the person who's going to advocate for your work. They're the person who's going to be talking to museums and getting to know curators at museums to get your work into museums. They're going to put marketing materials together. It's kind of like a real estate agent to a house. gallerists invest a lot of money in marketing materials. When they have openings, the gallerist is paying for the food and the drink and the beverage to have this opening, to invite their clients, to teach their clients about your work. So you want a gallerist who believes in you and understands what it is that you want to do, that you're doing, understands what you're doing now and understands what you want to do with your career, and they want to get behind you. So a lot of the bigger artist names that you know, if they've done it with a gallery, usually it's been a long-term relationship with a single gallerist or gallery, and they've been working and developing that career the same way you would a music artist, right? Also a gallerist, a really good gallerist, helps you to develop your work. So you may come in with one body of work, one kind of subject matter or style that you're working with, and over time they may say, hey, let's try something else. They kind of help pull some other things out of you and help you to push your work. That's kind of the ideal relationship.
Because I was going to say, on the flip side, let's just say, sorry, I don't know if you're like me. I watched from scratch a few months ago, and to see the main character as an artist and working in a gallery and trying to get her art seen, what do you say to the person who's trying to be in that space? That's trying to go from I work here, but I also want to be seen as the artist, because from the outside looking in, as somebody who is not a visual artist, I can only imagine how difficult it is to break that barrier. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's really hard. I think any kind of creative space, it's hard to develop your craft, right? Develop your talent, your voice, your perspective, the work that you're trying to put out, and then also build a commercial, marketable career. And I think the thing to do is to learn as much as you possibly can. So I didn't watch the whole movie. I watched a couple episodes. I'm glad I didn't stay till the end though, because I heard it was really
It was really rough.
it was rough. But I did. I watched the first couple of episodes from scratch. And so the main character, she's working in a gallery and she's an artist, and that's a really smart approach because she gets to learn the market from behind the scenes. She gets to learn how to interact with collectors, which is something that a lot of times is hard for artists, to learn how to interact with buyers and to learn how to talk about their work. I've heard artists sometimes they try to talk about their work and they try to make it too deep, too soon. Like sometimes it's just pretty, sometimes that's just it. Right, it's just cute. I just liked it. I saw this and it made me feel a certain way. But as you grow, you do want to increase the depth of your work and what it is that you're talking about. And that takes time. It takes experience and a comfort with talking to people and knowing kind of what language people like to hear you use when you're talking about art. So working in a gallery is a really brilliant way to get into that space. There's an artist I think she's out of Mississippi. Her name is ALEXnewaudio, McGrigg. Amazing artist. She's showing in Europe right now. She's from Mississippi, and she was working here in Atlanta at an art gallery, which is where I met her. We were working at the same gallery. She worked there after I left. And, it's just a great example of somebody kind of taking advantage of that opportunity to learn the industry and then using that to support her career.
So now that we've got the deep stuff out of the way, I know we're about to put a bow on this, but I'm not letting you get out of here without talking about the fun stuff. We're polling the room again. Frequency Fridays. Have y'all been? There's 4 of y'all that have been. That's 6 to me. You have to go for the dopest, I feel like one of the dopest parties in the city. So can you just paint a picture for us? What does Frequency Fridays look like to the person who has never been?
So that is First Fridays at the High Museum of Art. Let me just say, I encourage all of you to join the High Museum of Art. If you are interested in art, if you are an artist, it is mandatory that you join the museum. And the reason is because as an artist, you want to know your industry. It would be kind of like, me being a rapper, right, and not knowing anything about Biggie. Like, that would be weird, right? Or just like, Tupac who? So you need to join the museum if you are an artist so that you can build those references and get familiar with kind of the history of art and what's happening now, but what's happened before. And And if you just love art, you should just join the museum. It's a good date night or date afternoon. But it just, for me, it just really fills your spirit, expands your mind, expands your exposure. The High Frequency Friday is a great way to kind of get introduced. So it is a party at the museum. We have typically 2, sometimes 3 DJs in the museum, one in kind of like the big atrium area, one outside on the terrace. And like you said, I mean, people come from all over the city, all over the metro, all ages, all backgrounds to party in the museum from 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock. It used to be 6 to 9, but now it's 6 to 10 because
It's just that lit.
right. And it's some of the best DJs in the city. Like if any of you have friends who are DJs or you follow DJs, I'm sure at some point in the past 2 years, your friend has played at the High Museum.
Yeah, when I heard Future and Earth, Wind and Fire mixed, I knew I was at the right place. Like perfect toxicity level for me. And last but certainly not least, we've seen how art has made this large transition. We're seeing a lot younger people try to start building their collections, hence the yesterday piece. What does the tomorrow look like for art, especially in Atlanta?
I think the tomorrow piece is a couple of things. One, Atlanta being on the international stage in terms of art. We're growing in that. I think there's a lot of conversation about there eventually being an art fair here, kind of Art Basel, Freeze type of thing coming to Atlanta. There's a lot of conversation about that. And I think we're several years away, but I think we're getting there. So I think that's part of tomorrow. But I think tomorrow is also us as a community learning the art market so that we can find another avenue for wealth creation and investment and assets that we can leave to our kids. My 13-year-old daughter's here. She's cringing right now. But art is an unregulated asset class, right? Which means we can trade it and not report taxes. We can create values. So you make a piece, you give it to me, I kind of maybe promote it, get some of my other friends to buy it, slowly raise the price, and then I sell it to you for more than what she sold it to me for. And there's no rules about what those numbers look like and how those numbers are created, right? And there's a lot more to it than that, but it's a game that we're not in culturally, and there's a lot of money that is exchanged. And so I think tomorrow is us learning that and getting involved. And the other reason it's important that we get involved is because art captures culture. Art is a record of culture. It's a visual record of culture. And there are a lot of Black artists that are making big moves and really important right now. And if we're not buying that culture, if we're not buying that record of our culture, who's buying it? Whose homes are those works in? Whose homes are our stories in? Whose children are using that to pass it down and to learn? So we need to get involved.
Looks like we got some work to do. Y'all give it up one more time for Alex Davis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelly.
The